We like to say all the time stats lives matter. There's no statistical category where Danny Stutzman and Nick Martin are on the same hemisphere. The same can be said for Oklahoma State's defensive line in comparison to the rest of the entirety of the Big 12. Because, yeah, stats lives matter.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. We're back. And find me personally on X at All Day O State. Today, we are partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any $5 or more winning bet. So get yourself started today by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. We get started with the Oklahoma State defensive line. Now, when I say stats lives matter, just like we already know, Danny Stutzman didn't have near the same numbers as Nick Martin when it comes to tackles for loss, sacks, forced fumbles, things of that nature. I do think Danny Stutzman had one more forced fumble or fumble recovery than Nick Martin. Other than that, there's not a comparison. Just like whenever you look at the Oklahoma State performance from the defensive line last season, I think most people would chalk it up to be designated as reasonable, right? If 2023's designation was reasonable, then 2024's designation should be irrefutable, right? We should be causing irrevocable damage to every single team we play in the conference. Now, when you sprinkle in some of the new guys like Utah and Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, it's going to change things, obviously, a decent amount. We all don't know what we get out of those programs. We think we have a pretty decent idea predicated upon the success that they were able to have in the Big 12, but this is a little bit of a different animal. You're talking about a step up in competition. You're talking about a step up in the necessity to have quality depth. And when you look at Oklahoma State statistically, we did pretty good, which is kind of why it was a surprise when we got rid of Greg Richmond and we brought in Paul Randolph. But, guys, I think the lay of the land is pretty clear here. I think Mike Gundy himself even knows this is the biggest season for expectations and the necessity to capitalize, right? This is the biggest season for that. But whenever you look at what Paul Randolph's been able to do in his 25-year career, 22 of those being with the defensive line, he's created several SEC All-Pros and All-Americans. He's done the same in the Big 12. He's created several draft picks from the Big 12 and the SEC. He also spent some time at Arizona State, spent some time at Tulsa, spent some time, obviously, at Alabama, where he was named the SEC recruiting coordinator of the year. So he brings a lot of this stuff with him already. What we already have is talent. And when you look at Oklahoma State statistically, right, from last season, we were number 4 in the Big 12 in sacks. We were number 1 in the Big 12 in fumbles forced. We were number 6 in the Big 12 in picks. We were number 1 in the Big 12 in fumbles recovered. We picked up 10 fumble recoveries throughout the course of the season. Right. And then fumbles forced. We forced 12 fumbles throughout the course of the season. Interceptions, right? That doesn't necessarily fall so much on Paul Randolph, but it is a number that Paul Randolph will have a hand in this season. Last season was more about install, right? It was getting the familiarization with what Coach Brian Nardo wanted to do in this 3-3-5 system and how he could implement it. We all know it took a few weeks for the verbiage and everything, vernacular-wise, to kind of get down to where they could say it during live fire. They can make adjustments on the field, whether a team was going no huddle, with a huddle, didn't matter. Now, that was organically going to take some time. Now you got to take into consideration that the time that took is out of the way. And then when you're talking about having 20, 21-ish returning starters, most of those guys obviously are going to be the defensive side of the ball. What we need out of the defensive line from 2024 is different than 2023. Again, 2023 was about install, understanding, and controlling an area of operation. So when you have somebody like Justin Kirkland, who came in already a mountain of a man that could bench press and squat more than almost anybody on the team, you knew you had some pieces there. And then if you could see some of the development out of Collin Clay, we were going to be in good shape. Well, we saw that. The difference, though, this year is you can't just do enough to get by. You can't do enough just to be best in the Big 12. Of course, going back to Arlington, winning Big 12 title, that is number one on the priority list. But again, we would be remiss. It would be unfair of us as a fan base to not expect Oklahoma State to do more than just a Big 12 title run. So when you look at the statistical categories where Oklahoma State was number 1, number 2, number 4 in the Big 12 defensively, that's great. But we're not talking about just the Big 12. We need to look above the Big 12. So if some of these numbers that we've put together are tops in the Big 12, comparatively speaking, what does that equal in other conferences? Well, we're always going to make comparisons to OU and Texas because they've been in the Big 12 forever, and they're just now recently out of the Big 12. Therefore, when you look at those juggernauts compared to Oklahoma State, we fit right in. Because when you look at the guys that Oklahoma State is coming back, of course, Justin Kirkland, right? That's the biggest of the bunch. But also getting Collin Clay back is absolutely massive. I mean, that does so much for the interior of the defensive line. And, last year, A.J. Ridner was doing some stuff to give some guys some good looks, whether it be a scout team, third team style of classification. Iman Oates was somebody that, when you walk in the building at 6'3", 300 pounds, you're probably going to be in a pretty good position to catapult yourself into some playing time if all of the strength and conditioning goes to plan. Well, Iman needed a little bit of that. But again, 6'3", 310 pounds, and it's a little bit different. It's a different weight than he's ever had to work with. It's a different type of weight he's ever had to deal with. So last season was more of him getting in tune with his body physiologically with all the stuff that Rob Glass was going through. With that being done now, we should be in a contributor style of mode for Iman Oates. And if he can get on the field athletically, he's going to be able to do some stuff that Justin Kirkland just cannot do. Collin Clay's athletically, not the same as when he first got here from Arkansas either, because he's pushing 335 pounds now, which is great. I mean, you want your nose tackle to be a behemoth of a dude. But then you have somebody like Aiden Kelly. Aiden Kelly was a big-time 4-star get for Oklahoma State. And it's just been development. Well, from what I'm gathering, the development has caught up to all of the body by glass stuff. So he's walking around at a comfortable 315, 316-ish. He's already 6'3". He's already got the strength, right? That's something we knew. He had Division I strength before he ever even came to Oklahoma State. It's some of the technique and the hand fighting and the eye discipline, right? Disengaging from the blocks and still being able to track down. It was stuff like that he had to work on. Well, I'm hearing that all of that stuff is good to go, which means you should see a little bit of a tick up, right? I think Jalen Tucker is somebody that's going to be interesting as he progresses in his evolution at Oklahoma State. But then you shift to the outside, right? And this is where I think the bulk of the conversation needs to happen. In order for Oklahoma State to have the season that we want to have and the season that we think we can have, it's going to take some massive performances. This is the season for DeSean Brown to break out. No more getting just a couple inches away from 5, 6, 7 sacks. You need to convert those couple inches into production. I think he's going to be able to do that. I also think that, Cody Waltersheed coming back is going to be very beneficial for the learning and understanding for somebody like an Obi Ezegbo. Guys, if Obi Ezegbo, again, was 6'5", right, he'd be a bona fide, certified SEC-style guy. But we had that connection, getting him to come over from Gannon. I really am not all that worried about him being 6'2", 250, because if you see the way he moves on the football field, it's somewhat reminiscent of a Colin Oliver. So Obi Ezegbo, to me, is just an extension of what Colin Oliver can do, but he's got a little bit of a different skill set that he can offer as far as like speed packaging and things are concerned. Obi Ezegbo, on third downs and passing situations, this is where we should see him shine. Last season, we had a concerted effort to get Jaleel Johnson in the game. Jaleel Johnson being a Putnam City, North Okie product, all of us cannot wait to see what he's able to do. The spring should be able to show us a little bit of whether Jaleel Johnson has progressed enough to kind of break into the mix or not. Now, we need DeSean Brown to have a breakout year. We need Cody Waltersheed to be instrumental in teaching some of these guys. We need the emergence of Jaleel Johnson. We need Obi Ezegbo to be as advertised. Jadon Foreman is an absolute stud as well. Another Okie from the Del City area, 6'2", 280. He's got some fleet of foot capabilities, right? He's good at disengaging from the blockers. So he should be able to provide some depth. But a name that nobody's necessarily talking about that I think we should all be talking about a little bit more is Landon Dean. Landon Dean's a 6'5", 270-pound tight end / defensive end from Kansas. Landon Dean is the embodiment of what you want at Oklahoma State, right? We talk about the Brennan Evers style of guys. We talk about the Brock Martin style of guys that will run through a wall, break their nose, break their arms, whatever you need, coach. That is exactly what you're going to get. That is precisely what Landon Dean brings to the table. The athleticism is off the charts. The size is getting there. If he can learn to combine all of that, he athletically is going to be very, very difficult to keep on the field. His flexibility, his range of motion, all of that stuff that he possesses is pretty rare. It's not something you see every single day. We pride ourselves on versatility. He is possibly one of the most versatile guys we have on the defensive side of the ball. Matter of fact, Landon Dean would be a perfect candidate to go to Cowboy back if that was still a position that we had. But we don't, thankfully. We've moved on from Cowboy back. We have real fullbacks. We have real tight ends now. And as we saw last year, that's a pretty good recipe for success for Oklahoma State. It's a recipe for success that I hope we stick with, just like I hope we keep sticking some more weight on Kendall Daniels. The All-American is back to be just that, an All-American. But real quick, you have to be an All-American too, and you can't be an All-American if your rig won't get you there. Having the passion, the drive, and the patience is what it takes to bring home a trophy at any level. So keep your ride or die rig alive with eBay Motors. They have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lighting kits, whatever you need, whether it's power, whether it's speed, whether it's style. eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to choose from. Your number one ride or die rig can always stay alive. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, the part is guaranteed to fit your rig every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, the objective here is to be burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, all the prices you want, it's super easy to turn your rig into the MVP that you need to bring home the W. Keep your ride or die rig alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Again, that is ebaymotors.com, where eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers because you're special in Viva La America. What else is going to be special is watching Kendall Daniels. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the freshman All-American took a step back last season. I mean, he just did. Whether it be statistical, whether it be highlight film, whether it be just showing up massive in games and doing some crazy stuff, we didn't get that Kendall Daniels much this last season. Now, here's where I got frustrated with Kendall Daniels last season, right? We covered it in the segment, is I believe it was Cincinnati. At halftime, Brian Nardo pulled Kendall Daniels aside, right? And he talked about this in press conference, and he said, I need more from you. Like, if we're going to win this game, or we're going to turn this thing around, maybe it was BYU. I can't recall exactly what game, but there was a game where he was asked to do more. And then he comes out in the second half and has a sack, a forced fumble, 7 tackles. So clearly, Kendall Daniels always had a little bit extra. Like, that was never a question. The ability to shift, right? To take the mental and the physical and just react. That obviously slowed down a little bit, right? The freshman version of Kendall Daniels was flying through the line, jumping over all of the offensive linemen, jumping over fullbacks, doing wild, crazy stuff, getting in on jackknife sacks. And he would also read the ball so well, he'd have multiple interceptions. Well, that Kendall Daniels was asked to do maybe just a little too much last year. And I'm not saying that he did it wrong. I'm not saying that he got a lot wrong, whether it be diagnosing or dissemination of information. I am saying that it was clearly evident that the freshman version of Kendall Daniels and the sophomore version of Kendall Daniels were significantly different players. The athleticism, the talent, that was all there. So if we pride ourselves last season on the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Should we not expect more of that this season? And now that we know that Kendall Daniels has gone from 205 pounds, 213 pounds to 230 pounds, clearly the expectation this year for Kendall Daniels is shifted a little bit as well. So maybe you pop Cam Epps back, right? Maybe you have Trey Rucker pop back a little bit more as well. There's a multitude of areas that we can try to disguise, but clearly there's going to be an emphasis on getting Kendall Daniels more involved up front. The dude is basically a linebacker. He's a 6'4", 230-pound linebacker that can still run a 4.5, 4.6 40. The dude is rare, but last season maybe it was too much dissemination of information. Goodness me. Maybe it was too much for him to cerebrally pass everything off as opposed to just see ball, hit ball, get ball. That was what we asked of Kendall to do his freshman year. See ball, hit ball, get ball, right? Calvin Bundage style. Last year, I think from a cerebral standpoint, maybe it was just we asked him to do a little bit too much. Maybe that's not necessarily his comfort zone. Again, it's not that he cannot do it. It's the fact that you're so good, you're so talented, you're so fast, and now you're so daggone big. It's going to make more sense to creep you up in the line, to put you up in the box, to make you dominate the run game, right? That's something that we should be able to expand off of from this previous season. We were really good in the run game. We were absolutely porous for the most part in the passing game. I expect, as we all do, the passing game defense to get better, right? You've got your returning corners. You've got all of your returning safeties. You've got your returning linebackers. You got your returning defensive line. There's a lot of things that this defense can do that can kind of shed light on the fact that Kendall Daniels is one of the bona fide certified NFL players that we have on the roster. When you talk about All-Americans, you talk about Ollie Gordon, you talk about Nick Martin, you talk about Colin Oliver. People used to talk about Kendall Daniels, but because of his sophomore slump, I guess you could call it, people are not as worried about Kendall Daniels. So we in Oklahoma State country, we just need to get pumped up and get behind the fact that Kendall Daniels is going to play a little bit of a different role this season as opposed to the previous two. If we are already good at controlling the run game, then I would guess that this season the objective is to absolutely dominate that area. It's better to be a master of one than jack of all trades, master of none. Paul Randolph should be able to get so much out of this defensive line group that they can apply more pressure. It's not just about plugging holes, filling areas of operation, eating up double teams to free gaps for the guys behind. That's still going to be paramount in the success of the season. But I think more will be guys actually shedding blocks, right? Justin Kirkland, instead of just manning an area of operation, eating up a double team, he should be able to disengage now from a double team to get more active in pass pursuit. Same with Collin Clay. Xavier Ross has to have a massive year for this whole thing to shake out. But if the defensive line does the next step of evolution, which seems pretty natural, then that should allow more room in the back end. And we all saw last year, if you provide room in the back end for guys like Nick Martin, you see massive amounts of success. Well, now we can potentially do the same exact thing, but instead of just opening up areas for Nick Martin to dominate, now we can open more areas for a Kendall Daniels or even a Justin Wright. Justin Wright likely is going to be asked to fill that Xavier Benson role, a.k.a. take on everything to open up things for the other guys. Kendall Daniels is one of the few players that can do both for himself. He can create more opportunities for himself, and he can also take advantage of those opportunities better than most everybody else. We just need to take a moment to realize Kendall Daniels is a rare bird. Keeping Kendall Daniels from Texas A&M, keeping him in Oklahoma, that's huge for us, but it's also huge for him. He didn't get the results that I'm sure he was even expecting last season. This season, it appears as though he's going to be a headhunter, an absolute savage whose only job is to annihilate. And if that's the case, then should we not see the reintroduction of Kendall Daniels as an All-American? I think the role that Kendall Daniels is about to fill this season will catapult him into rarefied air at Oklahoma State. Do we have a lot of linebackers in the league right now? Yeah. Do we have a lot of running backs in the league right now? Yeah. Do we have quite a few wide receivers in the league right now? Yeah. We don't have an exorbitant amount of safeties in the league. Kendall Daniels is good enough to do that. I mean, Jason Taylor obviously got to participate in the Super Bowl, but Kendall Daniels is better than Colby Harvell-Peel. He's better than Trey Sterling. He's better than Jason Taylor II. And he's bigger. So I think the Big 12 needs to be on notice. Yeah, you got to worry about Ollie Gordon, Nick Martin, Colin Oliver. But Kendall Daniels is a different style of dude. And I think between Xavier Ross, DeSean Brown, Cody Waltersheet, the defensive line should be able to carry enough weight to allow Kendall Daniels and Nick Martin and Justin Wright to get to levels they've never touched, any of them. And I'm even considering Nick Martin's insane performance from last season. Can he do better than 140 tackles? Maybe. If the defensive line does what I think they're going to be able to do, I know for sure Kendall Daniels statistically is going to go a significant notch above where he is currently. Kendall Daniels might be the best kept secret on the roster. And it's crazy that an All-American can be viewed as a secret, but he is. Right? He's not viewed in the same vein as some of those other guys. Talking about viewing, we'll do an all-sports check-in, and we'll talk about the Cowgirls going to the Big 12 tournament real quick. We got to talk about your best sports destination, which has got to be Fire TV. Amazon has you locked down right here, right now. It's your destination for sports, live games, highlights, in-depth analysis. The Fire TV offers amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire Stick TV that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, college basketball tournament, or you're just getting geared up for football season, you want to have Fire TV. Recently, Fire TV created the Fire TV channels to support a constant supply, the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes most of us hosts here on Locked On and your other big-time pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the games, analysis, highlights, and more while you stay up to date on the latest in the world of sports. Whether it be March Madness, NBA, Major League Baseball, football, doesn't matter. Make sure you get hooked up today. And who doesn't want to see more of this, huh? More of Locked On. That's what you need in your life. So go check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you absolutely should. Guys, do yourself a favor. Go to Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV to get more information so you are prepared and aware of what you need to do next to enhance your experience. That's it. Enhancing experiences are what tournaments are about, especially postseason tournaments. Now, thankfully, we have enough teams in the Big 12. We don't have to do that deal in men's basketball or women's basketball where a couple teams don't get in. Oklahoma State women's basketball is not only in, but we're in a pretty good position. But we also got to do a check-in on baseballs. We got another W. This was a pretty big-time W. I'm still not sold on Rob Walton fixing all of his crudola. But it is what it is, and the Cowgirl softball squad gets a late-night extra-inning walk-off winner over Wichita State. Wichita State's always a quality ball club. Moves the Cowgirls to 18-2 on the season, and squarely in the mix with OU to make some stuff happen, because OU just got kind of exposed by Louisiana as they're still the juggernaut of the sport, but they're not as untouchable as everybody always thought. They're not devoid of opportunities where they can make mistakes, and then you can find ways to capitalize off those mistakes. But as we look at some of the other sports, right, women's tennis continues to cruise. Track and field is having a phenomenal season. Tennis, right, we should be putting ourselves in a position to win a national title. So winning the ITA national title, it's not NCAA, therefore it doesn't count, right? International tennis is not, viewed as highly as NCAA tennis, whatever. But if they keep winning, that's the next conversation for national title number 54 wrestling. If you watch the Iowa duel, that sucked. That hurt. That was a pretty good step backwards. But now you have the Big 12 championships in wrestling as well. We should be Big 12 champions, right? But there's some competition. It's not like it's going to be ridiculously easy to pull it off. But as you know, we think about the men's basketball, it's depressing. Okay. Yes, it is. That's fair. But women's basketball, it's been depressing is not the right word. Frustrating. Frustrating is a fair word. But we are now set to take on TCU. And you know what? The women's team, I think a lot of us have some confidence that they can make a run here. The women's team's issue all season has been roster. It's been depth. It's been the ability to rotate more than 7 girls at a time. Like at max, we get 8 individuals. That's not a good recipe for longevity success. But in short term, for just a game or two, we can do that. So if we knock off TCU, it sets up a bedlam. And you know what? That's what I want. Just get past TCU. Give us women's bedlam, number 3 on the year. We are 0-2 in this matchup. One game, we should have won. We could have won. The other game got wild, wacky, and crazy real quick, and we didn't really have much of a chance. So this is an opportunity for redemption, even if that's what we do. If we beat TCU, we beat OU, and then we get bounced. So be it. We also got to take into consideration, yes, losing this many players, whether it be to injury or quitting or transferring or what have you, that is on J.C. Hoyt, right? That is a mismanagement issue by the coach, 100%. But at the same time, she's found a way with 7 players, sometimes 8, to give us enough hope for this tournament to be something. Are we going to make it to the Big 12 title game? Probably not. Are we going to make it to the quarterfinals, semifinals? Probably not. But we're good enough to, and we're good enough to cause a stir in the Big 12. So I can't wait for J.C. Hoyt and the Cowgirl basketball squad to take the court tomorrow against TCU to set us up for what hopefully is Bedlam number 3 on the season. Men's basketball, we got to take down BYU in Provo this weekend before we get the Big 12 tournament stuff out. Obviously, when the Big 12 tournament stuff comes out, we'll either be second to last or last place. So it's not going to be easy, but we've got talent. And, the games won't be at Galgaraba. I know Mike Boynton's allergic to winning in Galgaraba, but, he fares okay on the road occasionally, at times, sometimes. Anywho, let me know down in the comments section what you think about the Big 12 tournament. Do you think the Cowgirls can make a run? Do you think the Cowboys being in the tournament's kind of a waste of time? Do you think that Rob Walton can fix his Rob Walton issues and we can get this staff narrowed down to where we can not only win the Big 12, but make a run at Omaha? Softball, there's always the juggernaut of OU down the road, but OU seems a little bit more susceptible than normal. We don't have a true, put-out ace pitcher, but our staff is pretty deep, all the way down to Katie Coots. We've got talent enough to win the Big 12. We've done it before, okay? We won the Big 12 tournament before over OU in softball just a couple years ago. We can do it again. Again, if you're talking about a series, that's different than a couple games. We're good enough to beat them a couple games. I don't know that we can beat them in a full series, but sometimes all you need is a W or 2. All righty, y'all. So glad to be up and running again. The upgrades, fiber optic. So we've got a plethora of guests lined up, including several current players. That'll be exciting. Until then, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. You know I love you. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. Here on Locked On Oklahoma State, you could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. Share, comment, subscribe. My podcast and people out there, you're the bricks. You're the foundation. Go hit the stars. Leave a review. Do what you do. We're gone. All right, y'all. Later, taters.